Jeff and Karen are 60 and 58 years old, and they are ready to retire. But before they do, they want to know just how much of their portfolio they can spend every year during retirement. Stick around and find out. Welcome to Rise in Retirement,
where it is our goal to help you optimize and simplify your financial plan.
I'm Jet.
And I'm Taco.
We are financial advisors at W.A. Smith Financial Group, a firm trusted by thousands. We work with people across the U.S., and our mission is to help you focus more on your life and worry less about your money. And we do that through case examples here every single week.
Love it. Today, our hypothetical case, Jeff and Karen, they have about $850,000 saved, a couple different vehicles that they've used to save for retirement. They're ready to retire. Before they do so, though, they want to understand how much of this nest egg can we pull without running out of money while we're still living. Not too worried about after, what's left behind, but they want to really maximize how much they can draw and get an understanding before they pull the trigger.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. Most of these cases that we go through, it's the opposite. People come in and go, here's what I need. Or we tell them, hey, what do you need? And then they work their budget and they tell us. And this is more so, hey, we want to retire and we want to know how much of this portfolio we can spend. And if that number looks good, you tell us we can spend a certain amount, we'll try to factor what our retirement lifestyle might look like off of that number.
Yeah. And, before we go too far, if a topic like this makes a lot of sense to you, you want to hear more, make sure that you like, subscribe, share our page so you can stay up to date with all of the different case videos here.
Jumping right into it, let's go over some base case details here. Jeff is 60, Karen is 58. Both working, but they would like to retire now if they can afford it. If that number I mentioned is right, they've got $850,000 saved. All debts are paid. Of that $850,000, Jeff's got $550,000 in his current 401k. Karen's got $200,000 in hers. They've got another $100,000 invested in a joint brokerage account, and they have minimal cash on hand at the bank. They've never kept that much there, kind of operating expenses week to week, biweekly. No children, no real legacy goals. They're kind of cool with the idea of that last check's going to bounce mentality. And they just want to build a plan that sees them spend as much of their nest egg as they can down, which is kind of tricky, as you know.
Yeah. Jed, if I could tell everybody when they're going to die, this is just a numbers game at that point, right? Yeah. You could play that game. So, kind of the first warning that I always like to tell people when they come in and kind of have this mentality, well, there's two points to make here, I guess. Number one is they're usually in pretty good shape from an expense standpoint. Mm-hmm. If you're coming in with that mindset of, hey, I just want to maximize how much we can take, usually it tells me that you're pretty low budgeted. You probably have no debt, such as, Jeff and Karen in this case. But I still have to warn people to not just think that, hey, I'm going to die at 80 or I'm going to die at 85 because that's when my parents, passed. And so I want to spend this thing down to zero by a certain age.
Yeah.
Now, they're not coming in saying that. They understand, hey, we want to just maximize how much we can take. But, we definitely have to plan for longevity, which that can be the tricky part where you're getting exactly down to zero when you die.
Sure.
And so that can be a challenge.
And I think this is a unique one, and we see this a lot more. It's this idea of the go-go years, the slow-go years, and the no-go years.
Yeah.
Kind of a tongue twister to say that one 3 times fast. Gradually spending that portfolio down as they advance to the end, they've also kind of stated right up front. In those early years, we'll call them the go-go years, we want to spend a little bit more actively. We want to enjoy this retirement nest egg we've built up and enjoy that time while we're able, while we're lively, while we're, physically, mentally able to do it. And they've, like a lot of people, and this is also a red flag sometimes. I want you to be careful with your thinking on this. They're kind of projecting to the future that once we get past those go-go years, call it the first 5 to 10 years of retirement for some people, we'll start slowing down on our spending. We're not going to do some of those things we did in the early parts of retirement. And then, those no-go years are when you're really getting close to the end. And, it's a super fixed income lifestyle at that point. And the only reason I caution you thinking this way, because I love this concept, go, slow go, no go. It can work really, really well. I've seen it more than I'd like to admit in clients that have tried to plan this way. They get to the end of what they were projecting all those years ago, those go years would be, say it was 5 years. Say, Jarrett, for the first 5 years, we want to spend 2 times as much as we are going to after that. And they get to the end and they're like, I don't want to stop.
Yeah. Well, think about it. Sometimes those go years keep you young.
Yeah.
They're keeping you active. They're keeping you healthy. And at the end of that 7 or 10 years, you're not ready to just, we got to cut our budget now and, start living in slow go, even though our body physically is telling us we're not ready to slow down yet.
Yeah.
Now I've seen it work the other way too, right?
Sure.
Where it just does slow down, due to, we joke, maybe you're tired of TSA, maybe you're tired of just people in general and traveling, and your international vacation becomes a more domestic vacation, whatever it may be. There is some slowing down potentially.
Yeah. You golf 5 times a week. And now you're only going to play 2 times a week, or you were traveling to see kids and grandchildren and you're not doing that as much. And so, yeah, you're right. If we define this a little bit more, because I want to get into the income side of this, because this is all, we talk about it all the time. Foundationally, income is where you start with retirement planning, investment planning, how you invest your dollars, the whole 9 yards. That first 10 years is the go zone for them in this case. Years 11 through 20 would be the slow go years, and years 20 through 30 and or beyond would be the no-go years. So that's what they've defined as their sequence, if you will. And talking quickly about income here for them, during the go years, they want to spend about $8,000 a month. Now, they've identified the basic expenses just to pay all the bills and to do what they want to do. If they lived frugally, they could do it on about $5,000 a month. But they've said, hey, no, go. We want to do more. We want $3,000 more per month of spendable cash flow. And then once they get to the slow go years, they're going to adjust that down. Instead of $3,000, we only need an additional $1,000 on top of that. And then when we get to the no-go years, we're back down to that 5,000 mark. Now, the key to remember here is that no-go zone is 20 plus years from now.
Right.
So even though 5,000 is what they're spending now, what will 5,000 look like 20 years from now is another thing that you have to consider with case.
Let's talk about that real quick, though, before we go into the actual income sources. This is about inflation, right? That's kind of what you were alluding to, is where does your 5,000 get you 20 years from now? One thing that I really, I believe in is we've seen inflation over the last several years, right? I think it's really important to inflate within your income plan those go years especially. Because guess what? The things you're doing, the costs are going up and it's getting more expensive to do those. However, the concept here of when you enter those slow go years, it's inflation may still be going and those activities you're doing, the cost may still be going up, but it doesn't mean you have to just keep building inflation to your budget number, because ultimately it's the activity will slow down, which will in turn lower your budget a little bit. So be careful when you're looking at a plan and somebody's telling you got to build 3% into your budget for inflation for the rest of your life. That's just usually not how it's going to work, right? Yeah. You're not going to be 85, 90 years old and needing, 5,000 goes up to 25,000 with that compounded in.
I mean, if you're going to plan that way, I guess it's a good way if you're thinking about the assumptions that you're using all across your plan. What rate of return assumption are you using? What tax rate assumption are you using? What inflation rate assumption? You can be really conservative by doing that. Yeah. In worst case scenario, test the plan, if you will. But well said. Income wise, they're both going to have Social Security. If they were to take it at their respective ages of 62, we'd have $1,800 a month for Jeff and $1,400 a month for Karen. Jeff's going to get a pension. He can't turn it on until his age of 65. It's a joint life survivor. So if he dies, his wife will get the full amount, and that's going to get them another $2,900 per month. So before we came on, you were talking about kind of developing this into phases. We talk about with our clients phases of income and what that means to them when they're planning for income. So I want you to walk through, when you look at this, what phases do you see and what does that mean to you?
Yeah. I see ultimately four phases for Jeff and Karen. Phase one being they're 60 and 58 right now. They want to retire. So guess what? You retire today. There's no income sources coming in.
Right.
We have no Social Security because we can't start that until Jeff turns 62. So we're 2 years away. We can't take the pension yet. So $8,000 need, they have to take $8,000 from their portfolio.
Retired paycheck's gone.
Yeah. It's about 11%. Just rough numbers, do the math. It's about $192,000 that they're going to spend in phase one because that's a 2-year phase.
Yeah, of the 850,000 that they
Correct.
have. Yeah.
Phase two then becomes Jeff's now 62, so we can kick on that 1,800 coming in for Social Security. So now the withdrawal rate is about 8% from the portfolio. 2 more years until Karen can take Social Security. So we're talking about $149,000 that they need to spend down during that phase. Phase three is that Karen can now take Social Security. She's 62. And basically, that phase runs until Jeff can turn his pension on of that $2,900 at 65. That could be another $172,000 that they spend. So they're front loading their plan.
Yep.
But it's really important to put purpose to money. And that's what we try to do when we build out our retirement income plan. It's identify a bucket, the period of time that bucket needs to generate income, and what other sources are coming in during that phase. And then you can kind of work the numbers backwards and, okay, how much do I need to put aside today, present value, to know that it's going to kick out the monthly income needed?
There's one more thing I'll add to this, and we're going to assume in this case example that either Jeff or Karen is entitled to retiree health care. Remember, they're retiring at age 60 and 58, respectively.
Yep.
And we didn't talk about health care in this specific example, but if one of them has retiree continuing care, that probably is why we're not speaking of that specifically. Right. But let's imagine for a second that they don't. Does that additional $3,000 a month that they wanted during the go-go years take that into account?
Right.
Or should that be added as a baseline expense from ages 60 and 58 to age 65 and 65? So another thing that you have to consider, we'll skip that for today. I think you need to remember with this one that they want that last check to bounce. So talked about an 11% withdrawal rate during phase one, something like 8+% during phase two.
Yeah.
Those are high withdrawal rates. You've seen this show before. We do red light, green light, yellow light assessment. It's probably a red light on our eyes if it was just based on that. And those withdrawals were going to continue. But that phase three kicks on. Now there's 2 Social Security checks coming in and a pension check. The shortfall that they have to pull goes way down. And they get themselves into actually a pretty decent scenario.
They do. You start looking beyond the go-go years and kind of entering those slow-go years where now all the income sources are coming in. The pension and Social Security income's basically getting them what they need to live off of. So yes, it feels like, gosh, we're spending so much money early on. We're just ripping right into our savings. But if they plan properly and they look at this by phases and identify buckets of money that they're going to live off of, whatever's left over can be a little more growth oriented. They'd be in really good shape with that mindset.
This is where discipline to your spending and what you said you were going to do with spending is extremely important, right? And before we go to red, yellow, or green, an awesome first step for you is head on over to riseandretirement.com. Click the link in the description below. It'll take you right there. We've got a ton of valuable free resources that you can check out.
Yeah. And if you're ready to talk to an advisor about your personal situation, we offer a complimentary retirement tune-up financial review that starts with the foundation of income planning. Do you have enough money? All the topics that we're talking about here. So if you're ready to take that step, you can find that right on riseandretirement.com as well.
So with with these guys, I think I'm giving it a yellow light, and we talked about it. They're in really good shape. And the only reason I'm putting this as yellow, I'm think we're you know, if you're sitting at the traffic light analogy, we're a few seconds away from that thing turning green unless something bad happens. For them, it's sequence of return risk. Remember, they're front end loading a lot of their spending. So if they invest too aggressively, if they don't have a very good plan, and bad things happen in the stock market in that first phase, those go-go years, and they stick to their guns and they're spending the way that they wanted to spend, we're not going to have nearly as much left over when we transition out of that phase. So that's the first one that I think is ultimately the biggest risk that they face.
Yeah.
Or I mentioned to you before, if they didn't budget properly.
Right.
Because we've seen that happen before.
Yeah. Yeah. If they were missing anything, or, you know, all of a sudden in year 3 of retirement, they decide, oh, hey, we want to buy a $300,000 second home, you know, now we're getting a little dicey. So
emergency healthcare expense. I mean, there's a lot of things that pop in out of nowhere.
Yeah, for sure. But ultimately, proper planning, I think, can get them to that green light. And it's funny because, you go back to a lot of advisors you got to be careful with. They may see that withdrawal rate early on and go, oh, gosh, you guys are in terrible shape. You can't do it. You have to define purpose to your money and understand what the long-term plan looks like as well.
Let's go over key takeaways. Mine's simple. I think in situations like this, if you're Jeff and Karen and you're doing the simple math, because they could do this math on their own and they're seeing the same thing you just mentioned. Wow, that's a lot of money we're spending before we get to age 62. Wow, that's a lot of money we're still spending before we get to age 65. They get a simple calculator and a napkin type of equation going down and they're seeing, well, we've got 850. But as you showed in your phases of income, we're spending almost half of that in the first 10 years or less of retirement.
Yeah.
That might scare them away from ever even considering it. And I think, as we've shown, have a conversation with someone like us or anyone else out there that does income planning at a high level, and you might find a different answer.
Yeah, that's mine as well. Is ultimately you should have a simplified way of understanding what your income situation will look like. You know, exactly these years, I'm going to live off of my Social Security, my pension, you know, this part of my portfolio. Just have purpose to your money at the end of the day. You should be able to sit on the other side of your advisor's table and tell them how your plan is going to work in retirement. You should understand it that much.
Well said. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. If you liked today's video, leave us a comment below. Head on over to Rise in Retirement. Link in the description below. That's all the time we have for today. Until next time, we'll see you right here on Rise in Retirement.